Manel and Julia, his wife, are driving home from Spain. Julia brings up the topic of having kids since she needs an answer to help her plan for the future, and Manel hasn't decided yet. After a fight breaks out and they both become sidetracked, Julia needs to swiftly maneuver the car to avoid an approaching car. Unfortunately, their vehicle ends up in the middle of the road, and a large truck strikes them out of nowhere, sending the vehicle rolling. Manel, a widower, lives alone with his cat a year later. Reporters on television discuss the UN considering border closures due to an odd illness that is circulating. People are getting violent at the borders while attempting to flee because prevention measures aren't working. Manel eventually mutes the TV because he is so depressed that he hardly pays attention. He doesn't view security footage from a hospital that shows a patient gradually turning into a zombie. When an ambulance passes by, Manel decides to take a ride. Graffiti stating that the end is near is found on several walls throughout the town. Having not used his boat since his wife passed away, Manel travels to the harbor to speak with women who are interested in purchasing it. Manel discovers Julia's bracelet while searching for the boat's papers, and a wave of nostalgic recollections floods his thoughts. Manel rejects his sister's call when he is on his way home. When he goes to the grocery store to get some groceries, he observes that everyone is purchasing far more food than they usually do, nearly filling the shelves. When he hears on TV that the infection has spread to Spain, he later wraps the bracelet around the cat's neck at home. Manel makes a video call to his sister Belen in the evening, and she has some exciting news. She invites her husband, who works for the government, to accompany her on the family's relocation to the Canary Islands, but Manel declines. Manel decides to follow suit the following day after noticing that all of his neighbors are going, and he takes his cat with him. He learns via the radio that a new viral strain is sweeping across Europe during the voyage. This variation is spread through bites and wounds and reduces the incubation time to a few minutes. Manel informs Belen at the airport that he will indeed be joining her. When tickets are refused without explanation as passengers attempt to board the aircraft, the mob becomes upset and starts yelling at an uninformed staff. Everyone receives a notification on their phone declaring a civil security warning, and the large screen abruptly announces that all flights have been canceled. Despite the hysteria in the throng, several people attempt to board the aircraft. Belen calls Manel and instructs him to stay inside and refrain from leaving until they get further information. The throng flees the airport as a man robs the guards of their firearm and threatens to start shooting. The radio reports that all roads and bridges are in the same predicament, and Manel is delayed in traffic as everyone tries to get home. Drivers begin to argue with one another and exit their vehicles as military helicopters fly overhead. News reports indicate that military personnel have been evacuated, and violence has resulted in numerous soldiers being hurt. Many drivers eventually give up their automobiles and walk away because they are sick of waiting. Manel resolves to do the same and grabs his cat. He finds out that a group of troops have surrounded a structure to construct a specific tunnel on a house when he gets to his neighborhood at night. Strange sounds emanate from it, and Manel is startled to see the soldiers carrying a zombie down the tunnel from the house as the wife outside sobs for her ailing husband. Manel discovers he knew the man as the zombie is driven away in a military vehicle. After that, Manel returns home and sleeps. He has a dream about the accident and Julia's passing that night. Belen video contacts Manel the following morning to inform him that safe zones are being set up in order to relocate the populace. As other nations have already struggled with this, there are disagreements within the army because the more individuals they take, the more opportunities there are to introduce the virus into the secure area. Whatever she says, Manel should stay at home. More riots will break out on the streets as soon as all major cities declare quarantines and forbid anyone from seeking shelter there. As a result of the virus's spread, people begin to record zombies devouring people in their neighborhood for social media. Others create movies that share ideas about how to defend themselves and make armor. The government declares a state of emergency that afternoon, imposing new regulations that include the potential for population militarization and the need that all commercial activities stop after 2 p.m. People are taking from one another's hands, and there is nearly no food left when Manel returns to the grocery. Manel gathers everything he can and watches fighter jets fly past as he leaves. He then makes a visit at the gas station to pick up additional supplies. An injured police officer then shows up, bumps into Manel, and locks himself inside the station store by securing the doors with his handcuffs. More people quickly arrive in the vicinity, frantically rushing and yelling for assistance. Another officer is suddenly attacked by a zombie who begins to bite his face. As the zombie approaches him, the fallen cop shoots him, causing zombie blood to spill on Manel's face. Manel then grabs a mop and prepares to defend himself. The first police officer enters the store and begins to change while beating on the glass. The fallen officer shoots at the floor to keep the anxious Manel at bay as he tries to check on him. The cop self-deletes once Manel departs with his belongings. The president eventually makes an appearance on television later that day and declares a prolonged lockdown. Criminal penalties will be imposed on anybody who do not comply with the army's evacuation plans. Manel installs a security camera and reinforces the house's outside walls using his tools after seeing online tutorials. When the army arrives to evacuate Manel's area in the evening, Belen sends him a letter advising him to stay at home and promising to come get him shortly. As he hears the troops beating on his door, Manel shuts off the lights and hides with his cat. Fortunately, they don't take it down, and they also don't spot him at the window, so they depart. After 2 weeks, Manel is beginning to run out of food and is unable to phone his sister due to a downed service. After much deliberation, he gathers a number of self-defense items, wraps his body in layers, and eventually departs his house. In search of food, he breaks into several homes, but sadly, he finds nothing. After several hours of looking, he finally finds an elderly woman named Gabriella inside a house. She is wheelchair-bound and was unable to participate in the evacuation. Although she is also without food, she advises him which houses could have anything because she saw how the neighbors overspent before the lockdown. After visiting each home on her list, Manel eventually begins to locate food and other practical items such as a bicycle. Manel dares to go farther and gets a good amount of food, which he shares with Gabriella, thanks to the bike. In order for them to talk while he's out, he also provides her a walkie-talkie. The house where the military discovered the zombie is now the only one left to see. Manel discovers a tank with dead fish inside, but no food. He thinks it's a zombie, so he instantly opens fire when he detects someone behind him. Actually, it's a typical person that flees right away because they believe Manel is hostile. He finally finds additional food in one more cupboard before departing. As the days go by, Manel and Gabriella frequently get together for dinner. After drinking one evening, Manel writes to Gabriella to express his regret for not spending more time with his family. He then has another dream about the disaster, recalling how they were flown to the hospital. Gabriella on the walkie-talkie abruptly wakes him up by urging him to switch on the radio. They reveal the coordinates so that people can locate this rescue group when Manel hears a voice stating that survivors are being sent to the Canaries. Manel notes that they are running low on food, but Gabriella doesn't trust them. It looks like the gang is at the Arousa estuary, and Manel believes they could get there on his boat. However, Gabriella says she can't go since she would be a burden. Despite his vows to look after her, Manel doesn't listen. Manel becomes anxious the following morning when Gabriella fails to return his calls. She self-deleted, he finds out when he rushes to check on her. A note that she left behind told him to save himself and thanked him for the previous few days. Manel is disarmed by a zombie that attacks him unexpectedly on his way back. The zombie grabs Manel's leg to drag him away after he kicks him off and leaps atop a car after some battle. As the zombie bites Manel's arm, the struggle goes on. The beast spits blood on his face, but fortunately his shielding prevents it from piercing skin. The zombie's head becomes lodged in the shattered glass as Manel reaches out to open the car and begins pounding her with it. Then, when the zombie breaks loose, he dashes to get his weapon and shoots to kill her. In case the police discover her, he then takes her ID out of her wallet and places it on her chest. He sends Belen another message stating that he can't wait for her any longer after boiling water at home to clean his weapon, but the service is still down. After that, Manel rides out at a high speed through the deserted roads with his cat on his bike. He eventually encounters a barrier, forcing him to traverse the wilderness. Zombies are pursuing him there, but they are not quick enough to apprehend him. They occasionally attempt to jump, so Manel must be alert to dodge. He has no other way out of the abandoned camp, but he is afraid of what he might discover there. As he starts to cross it, a large group of zombie campers emerge, so Manel accelerates to avoid running into them all and hitting any machinery. He gets to another road after navigating the area without getting bitten, only to find a pile of bodies blocking it. Instead of stopping in time, Manel falls off the bike because he is moving too quickly. The cat is fortunately secure in his kennel. When he hears the zombies coming, Manel gets back on the bike, but it won't start, so he has to run. The zombies are practically breathing on his back as he makes his way through the woodland as quickly as he can. When he finally reaches the harbor, he closes the gate behind him after crossing the bridge. Soon after, the zombies begin beating on the glass until they shatter it and flee as well, but by that time, Manel has passed through a more robust gate and is able to leave. When Manel finds that all of the boats have left the harbor, he initially believes that there is no hope left. But when he looks around, he spots an abandoned boat in the middle of the water. The boat refuses to start when Manel swims to it and tests the engine. He opens a door after hearing a commotion and discovers a zombie infant wedged on a chair. Manel then departs on a little raft with his cat. He attempts to use the radio message to get there, but it is destroyed. He continues to record messages for his sister even though he still loses signal no matter how far he is from the coast. The raft stops in the middle of the journey that night. Manel finds a body caught in the engine as he checks on it. When he notices a bright light approaching, Manel yells for assistance and gestures his arms. When he finds out, a boat full of Ukrainian men agree to let him join them. They take Manel and the cat to a big ship and feed them. There are a lot of zombies on land since the Canaries have been quarantined and the authorities haven't allowed the evacuated survivors to disembark, according to Victor, the only man who speaks Spanish. When he says he will assist them in finding supplies in the morning, Manel gives them a room. Manel glances out the window to see some survivors on a boat pleading for assistance after hearing some voices in the middle of the night. When Manel asks about the new survivors the following morning, Victor adamantly claims that no one showed up last night. In order to assist in locating factories and hospitals on the map, Manel is then summoned to the captain's office. In the end, he finds that the crew has the survivors' belongings and that the boat he spotted the night before is on board. When he questions Victor about it, he declines to respond. Manel informs Victor that he knows where to find a helicopter because he is a pilot, but Victor urges him to stop looking and to keep his head down. As the evening wears on, Manel realizes that the ship is transporting every boat that the crew has stolen from hapless survivors. To sneak around the ship, he packs his belongings and conceals his cat in his bag. The survivors are tied up in a downstairs room, and Manel quickly frees the first one, but a guard shoots him down as soon as he stands up. Victor then shows up and tries to disarm the guard, but they fight over the gun and accidentally shoot it, damaging the surrounding area. The men then begin punching each other, and Victor manages to grab a rope to choke the guard to death. Victor wants to escape too, so he agrees to find the helicopter. Manel, Victor, and the other survivor cautiously sneak around until they reach a boat, and just as they are ready to depart, two guards open fire, killing the person. Victor fires back at them as the boat takes off, but his shoulder is damaged. Manel speeds up the boat so they can get away before they are killed. They reach the coast a little while later, and Manel assists Victor in walking. They discover many automobiles and a zombie trapped in one of them, which Manel promptly dispatches. Because Manel remembers the helicopter, the two men and the cat then drive off to locate the hospital where Julia passed away. Victor reveals during the journey that the ship's captain was a monster who was constructing a haven on an island. All of the women and children were abducted for his amusement because he only permitted those who worked for him to reside there. Manel is disappointed to see the helicopter is not on the roof when they eventually get at the hospital. Manel drives crazily to get rid of the zombie that suddenly jumps on top of the automobile. He then kills it with Victor's gun, and when other zombies are drawn in by the commotion, Manel swiftly dispatches them as well. Manel then looks for a tool to take the bullet out of Victor's shoulder as the guys and the cat enter the hospital. Manel heads upstairs as he hears some sounds coming from the first floor. When he spots a zombie passing by, he ducks away to avoid being noticed. He then converses with the voices emanating from the vents until a second zombie materializes behind him. After Manel swiftly pushes him away and shoots him, other zombies swarm through the doors. He dashes back to the first chamber right away, making sure to shut the doors to keep the zombies out. Manel is shocked to discover that Victor and the cat are not where he left them. A chute opens as he turns around, and Lucia invites him to come along. As the zombies smash down the other doors, the pair escapes by closing the chute. They take Manel to an infirmary where Sister Cecilia and Nurse Lucia have 3 kids and Victor, the cat. The women tend to Victor's injury and keep him stable. Lucia discloses that the helicopter is parked behind the hospital in the quarantine area, which is populated with zombies, when Manel brings it up. Manel, who is constantly thinking about his wife, shares the little food the group has that evening. He recalls their final moments together in the room where she passed away. Additionally, he binds the cat's bracelet to Julia's bed. After watching the zombies on the roof the following morning, Manel's phone unexpectedly gains signal, allowing him to access all of the texts Belen had sent him over the previous few weeks. Manel is recording a response when he hears gunfire and turns to see that the ship's crew is murdering zombies in order to get into the hospital. They attempt to reach the helicopter by using the hospital basement as Manel rushes to alert them to the impending threat. As they go about the smoke-filled and body-filled cellar, everyone must cover their noses and mouths. Regretfully, they had to use an axe to pry open the jammed door. When a zombie emerges, it attacks Cecilia and bites her. He is pulled away by Manel, who then burns his face on a hot pipe before Lucia uses the axe to murder him. Now that she has contracted the infection, Cecilia tells them to continue without her and departs. After arriving in a corridor, the group discovers zombies hiding behind some furniture. Lucia opens the door silently, but a child breaks the silence when she realizes her mother is among the zombies. Fortunately, they are not heard, and as they approach the entrance, a zombie abruptly knocks down a few bookcases. Manel hides with the child inside a cabinet as the others hide behind the door since the commotion alarms the other creatures. For a moment, it appears like Manel's life is gone when the zombies begin to beat on the cabinet, but the ship crew quickly arrives and eliminates every zombie. They leave without seeing anyone after a brief fight. When the gang eventually reaches the final door, they can see all of the zombies outside. Manel ties many cages together and they use them as a shield to traverse the yard, recalling the online tutorial. At first it goes well, but when a wheel gets stuck, the noise attracts the zombies. To keep them at bay as Victor keeps pushing the cages, Lucia wields her axe and Manel a fire extinguisher. Although they advance very slowly, they manage to reach the gate with great effort. Victor rushes to the helicopter with the children, but Lucia uses her axe to break the chain and remains with Manel to hold the zombies back. Lucia and Manel finally close the gate and secure it with a scarf after much shoving, and they then rush to join the others. When Victor's attempt to launch the helicopter fails and the zombies begin to scale the fence, Manel runs out to engage them in combat. Victor locates an unplugged cable at that precise moment and reconnects it to enable the chopper to function. The crew responds to the engine noise, arrives at the yard, and begins firing down zombies. They threaten to shoot the group if they don't cooperate, and they cut the scarf to open the gate. With extreme caution, Victor nods to Manel, who opens a second gate by breaking another chain. The group is swiftly surrounded and bitten by a fresh wave of zombies that burst into the yard. Victor makes the chopper hover in order to drive away some zombies that approach it as well. Manel uses the axe to kill zombies as he moves through the crowd. As the chopper is about to take off, Lucia tosses a ladder, which Manel instantly climbs to rejoin his new pals and his cat after all the zombies have been eliminated. The chopper is approaching the Canaries a few hours later. Belling calls Manel at that very moment and tells him not to come. The fact that two fighter jets pass by indicates that the islands are also infested. To ensure you never miss any updates on new videos, kindly click the bell icon, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.